Now, as the global COVID-19 pandemic rages on, one of the most robust industries, that is events and entertainment, is severely hit. This putting millions of livelihoods at risk. Here in Kenya, the silence in social places is deafening. Bars are shut, social gatherings suspended, and even when you plan for a wedding, you can only invite a few people. The new normal, they say, even as many turn to the virtual space to ensure business continuity as the live event industry grinds to a halt. On this episode of The Front Row, we explore the extent of impact that the coronavirus has had on the entertainment and events industry. We speak to key industry players on how those directly and indirectly involved can wade through the storm during these unprecedented times. I am your host, Akisa Wandera, and we'd like you to be part of this important conversation that touches on the lives and livelihoods of millions of Kenyans. If you want to be part of this conversation, log on to slido.com. The event code is hashtag The Front Row. You can as well send your comments, contribution or questions to our panelists on Twitter at Akisa Wandera, at KTN News. The hashtag to use is The Front Row, as well as on all our social media platforms. I'll be sampling a number of your views as we go on, as well as posing your questions to our panelists tonight. Well, let's now take a look at who we have for this episode of The Front Row. We'll start with Dr. Catherine Masitsa. She's the CEO and founder of the Samantha Bridal. And Dr. Masitsa is the CEO and founder of Samantha Bridal, and she's a successful award-winning media marketing and event industry entrepreneur. She founded Samantha Bridal in 2003, overseeing its growth as the largest wedding media and lifestyle company for the wedding and event industry. Catherine and her team have designed unforgettable events like the luxury wedding showcase, the annual Samantha's Bridal Fair, and the legendary 1 million Kenya shilling entry fee royal wedding watch party. In addition to designing stylish and remarkable events, Catherine has expanded into the world of lifestyle to help her fans and fellow event planners in their own pursuit of creating memorable events. Thank you very much, Dr. Masitsa, for joining us for this program. Next, we have Chris Kira, who's the Chief Operating Officer at the Kate Chris Limited, an events agency. Kira, he is an events and he's an events, owns the events agency, beg your pardon. He has over 20 years of events management experience with boutique attention that cuts across corporate events, high-profile wedding planning, coverage, branding, technical emceeing, risk assessment, and social media strategies. He says that his company makes it their business to see that all events, big or small, have relevant and memorable experiences. Thank you for joining us here tonight for the show. We also have Joseph Mwendwa, commonly known as DJ Joe Mfalme, who's widely known in the country and is an award-winning popular DJ. His pursuit of being a DJ would lead him to enter the Pilsner Mfalme DJ competition in 2008, where he emerged first runners-up. Capital FM went to Capital FM, then saw something very special in him and offered him a contract. Of Best Media DJ, DJ Joe Mfalme has gone on to lock down numerous shows on Capital FM, thus cementing his place as one of the finest DJs with no fewer than 4 different shows every week on the radio station. He is on heavy rotation, and the feedback received from the listeners has been positively overwhelming. Has established himself in the entertainment industry and racked up a number of achievements and credits. And we thank you for joining us on The Front Row to share your personal experiences on the topic of discussion. And finally, we have Michael Mudhame, who's a director and board member of the Pubs, Entertainment and Restaurants Association of Kenya, PERAC. A 19-year veteran of the hospitality business, he is currently the MD of Red Brick Hotel in Karen. Michael began his hospitality career in 2002 with Sodexo, then Lethaby and Christopher in the UK. In 2010, he moved back to Kenya and later took over the running of the family business, which is the the Red Brick Hotel, Karen. He then joined the National Association PERA committees on copyright issues and as a liaison with Nairobi County. And in 2017, he joined the PERA board. Those are the guests we have tonight to just help us understand the extent of the impact of COVID-19 on the events and entertainment industry, even as we look at solutions on how to move forward in these unprecedented times. But before we get to that, let's take a look at one of the new normals that we've been hit by since this pandemic started. A couple in Kajiado County walked down the aisle in a glamorous yet unprecedented manner after the two decided to tie the knot despite the government regulation on social distancing. Simon Mutuma and Mary Wamboi's wedding saw only a handful of guests attend, as KTN's Timothy Otieno now reports on the new normal at weddings and a union that not even an invisible virus could help put asunder.
Simon Mutuma couldn't be any happier after months of planning and a budgeting process that could have seen him spend close to 500,000 shillings. He'll marry the woman of his dreams for less than 70,000. For any other bride, a wedding is all about the glitz and the glamour. But for Mary Wamboi, an empty church will make do. It's a unique wedding under very unprecedented circumstances after the state banned all social gatherings, including at weddings. But that could not dampen the spirits of the jovial couple who tied the knot at the Kitengela Presbyterian Church of East Africa with only 10 people in attendance.
Tumeshikanisha bila watu kwa sababu ya vile kulivyo na janga la Covid-19.
Tulipokuwa tunapanga harusi yetu, tulikuwa tuita watu zaidi ya 400 na hiyo mipango yote tulikuwa tumeshafanya. Tulikuwa na bridal team yote ya watu kama 40.
After the vows had been taken, a rather unique photo shoot would follow suit where Simon and Mary were not allowed even to touch. The wedding ceremony follows strict government guidelines issued out to curtail the spread of the deadly coronavirus.
Lile la muhimu ni kwamba tumeweza kuchukua vows because that was the most important. The wedding part of it was supposed to be very colorful, but then after the wedding we have a marriage that we have to take care of, and we believe God is going to see us through in our marriage despite all that.
Makanisa yale mengine yote na wale wengine wote ambayo wako na mipango ya harusi sasa wajue mambo yamebadilika, wakubali vile kulivyo na waendelee bila kujali kama kuna umati. Harusi ni ya mtu na mwenzake.
But virus or not, Simon and Mary are determined to ensure that their marriage life will be much more tantalizing than perhaps their wedding was. Timothy Otieno, KTN News.
Definitely a new normal that most of us did not see coming, and because we're looking at social events, we cannot leave out weddings in this conversation. And I'd like to start with you, Dr. Masitsa, because we've started off with that story by reporter Timothy Otieno just signaling the changes and how people are responding to it. What has this industry been like, hit by this new regulation, some even having as less as 10 people in their weddings? What has this meant for the industry?
Well, what it has meant initially, there was no social gathering at all. But now there are few weddings happening and people are accepting the new normal. But in the wedding industry, it's about for you to run a business and to say, because you're talking about an industry, and to say that you're running a successful business, you need to be turning over. So, numbers of like 15 people and people spending 70,000 is simply not on. It cannot sustain an industry. So what it has been is that nothing is happening. People are getting married, yes, with 15 people, but a lot of wedding entrepreneurs are really suffering. And it's just not the entrepreneurs who are suffering in terms of no incomes or reduced incomes. It is that, one of the things weddings do is to redistribute income. if you're talking about a really high-end wedding, somebody spending upwards of 10 million, 20 million plus, when you look at the people, the food chain, the people in the chain who actually benefit, these people are also not employed. The musicians, the artists who are there, the caterers, all these people are affected. That's why the other day, still on your channel, I saw one of the banks had released that, since July, the business has been going up, and yet this money is not being felt. It is because the events industries that redistribute the income, they're suffering. So even these Mama Mboga can now not afford because their source of income is affected. But the industry is almost on its knees.
Well, you paint a very grim picture of it all, and I'd like that you mentioned the entire chain. So then what's happening? How are people coping? Just give us a glimpse of that, because I know we'll get deeper into that. How are we coping?
So in terms of the industry, some people, of course, had passive income, and other people have to make do with doing the smaller weddings. The 15 people weddings. So what happens is that there's many people in an average wedding, a wedding, the one we actually talk about was a wedding, the one that is sustaining the wedding businesses. About 26 businesses are involved in staging just one do. So you find that if it's a wedding planner, whether it's 15 people or not, sometimes you may not want to reduce your fees. Then people will just have to pay the planning fee. For photographers, it's the same. I mean, photography, whether you're photographing 1,000 people or one person, but mainly it's usually the couple. So those are not really affected in that way. The people affected are the people who, for example, you took a loan and you have to service this loan, and you brought in chairs, a lot of chairs, a lot of tents. Those people are suffering, and they are making do with perhaps doing other businesses.
Right.
Or mainly doing other things,
okay,
because the industry is not on. Yes.
Right. Chris Kiro, as someone who's worked in the events industry for about 20 years, and I started by saying social places, the silence in social places is really deafening. What has it been like for those of you who work directly in the events industry?
I think I'll start by looking at the food chain, the way Dr. Catherine Matsitsa puts it. You see, events are not stationary. 1 minute you wake up, and outside in the field next to you, in a remote place of this country, you have these guys who have crash helmets, they are in overalls, and they are setting up a huge structure because there is an event happening in that particular county. When we guys move into that particular place, we affect the economy of that place because we sleep there, we consume the food of that place, we employ casuals within that particular community, we hire security, we hire emergency services. So that's what happens. So immediately now that there is silence, there is some serious deafening silence, it means all these people that used to benefit from road shows, as simple as a road show, from a beauty pageantry, you'll have all these girls coming to audition, from a brand that wants to activate within the community. It can be what we call social marketing, where you go and want to teach the community about the dangers of not sleeping inside a mosquito net. Those are activations that are done by events people. All that is silent. So you can imagine. So before you even come to ourselves as an agency that employs people, the chain down there is really suffering, because I think I am right, and somebody can correct me, Joe is here. We were the first guys that got shut down automatically by default, when now it was discovered COVID is a social distancing disease that you need to keep away from socializing.
All right.
So events, that's what is happening. So that's where we are. It's crazy.
I really want DJ John Falmer to pick up from there, being the very first industry to be affected. As a DJ who's in very high circulation on normal days, what is it like now?
I would speak. Let me just speak on my behalf. At least, I would say that I'm privileged. At least I'm doing a couple of radio and TV shows, but still, events were the main source of income for me. So things had really had to change, especially during the weekends. You know, like Easter. Easter weekend was that one weekend that I missed, and I just felt like crying, and it was too crazy. But yeah, man. But things have really changed, especially on behalf of the DJs who play in clubs only. You can imagine these guys don't have any source of income, and that's from mid-March to now. That's like it's going towards the 6th month. So. I don't even know how these guys are surviving. I don't know. It's crazy. Guys have moved out of Nairobi. Other guys have sent messages in the groups being evicted from their homes. So it's really crazy. Yeah.
You mentioned weekends being the major time or period for DJs. What are weekends like for you now if you compare them to pre-COVID?
Weekends for me now, I've started looking for hobbies, and because I used to leave home Friday morning, come back Saturday morning. I have to catch up with my TV show. Then I sleep for like 3 hours. Go for a gig again on Saturday night till Sunday morning. Sometimes used to have Sunday events. Some corporates used to call us for Sunday daytime gigs. Some clubs and used to call us for theme nights for Sunday nights. But right now, I mean, we just, from Friday, I mean, it's just learning how to adapt to the new sleeping patterns. Strategizing on how we'll get more TV shows because it's the only source of income right now.
Yeah. Well, TV, radio, the mainstream media now. And when I come back to you, I'd really want us to talk about this virtual space and how we are seeing a number of DJs take advantage of that. But let's get the opening remarks from Michael Mudhami, our director at the Pubs Restaurant Entertainment Association of Kenya, or PERAC. We have seen PERAC constantly release statements on the status of things or this particular industry. Bars are now completely shut. They were termed as the weak link in the spread of this virus. Speak to us about, especially in numbers, what's the extent of the impact?
Let's take it from March the 22nd is actually when bars were shut. Bars were not just shut last week. They've been shut since March the 22nd. The things that are opened are restaurants and eateries. So all our members who run bars have actually been shut since March the 22nd. So they have no income at all. All the people who are working there are now at home. They have nothing to show. They are all still have expenses. They are paying rent because landlords don't want to hear about we are closed or anything like that. So that's why you get instances of big names like Kosewe in Upper Hill being auctioned. So what has been opened with entertainment joints that we have restaurants where someone can get a meal, or what the Ministry of Health has been calling eateries, which until a week or so ago were being allowed to sell the cargo special, as we call it, which was a couple of drinks and food. So now that we are almost completely closed, we are on our knees. We are looking at 70% of all our members being completely shut down if we do not go back to at least some modicum of openness.
What's the number? When we say 70% of the membership are likely to close, paint a picture for us in terms of the numbers. How many bars, restaurants are we talking about here? Who are members of the association, of course?
We have roughly in this industry 8,000 what we call registered with the Nairobi City Council. And we are looking right now, if we have another month of this, minimum of 50% will not open at all again. We're having these places closed on a daily basis. Since the COVID protocols were put in, some, instead of putting in the COVID protocols, decided not to open at all, because the fact of them opening, even with the social distancing that was being required, they would be making a loss every day they were open.
So we have a big team that's just chosen to remain shut throughout since March. Is that what you're saying?
It is not their choice. You see, it's not by choice. It's because of circumstance. If every day I open my establishment, which was 50 people were allowed to sit before. Now, because of the social distancing rules, maybe 20, 25 are allowed to sit. I'm not even getting those 20, 25 people through, because you have to remember as well, the economy is down. Yes, now they are only eating. They don't have the alcohol aspect, which a lot of people would prefer to have a meal with their alcohol with their meal, because it's I don't call it a vicious circle, but one leads to the other one.
All right, thank you. Yes,
if you are in a position where,
go ahead.
If you open, you lose. Yes, you open, you are losing, because the members of staff you have on, you have to pay all your taxes. The landlord doesn't want to know whether, as long as you open, that landlord expects 100% of his rent. You cannot make it. So you'll have just to stay closed. We have a lot of members who have actually just decided to leave the business alone and move on to something else.
Tough choices there to be made. I'd like us to quickly take a short break here on the front row. Remember, we have the key industry players. We have DJ Joe Mfalme, Dr. Catherine Masitsa of the Samantha Bridal, Chris Kira of Kate Chris Limited, and of course Michael Mudhami, a director at Perak. What are your thoughts? Do you work in this industry? Do you work with this industry? How have you been affected? We'd really love to hear what you have to say about this. Remember, you can log on to slido.com. The event code is #TheFrontRow. I'll be sampling a number of your comments and questions as we continue with the program, as well as you can join us on Twitter. The hashtag, once again, the front row, Akisa Wandera at KTN News KE. Let's talk. How do we save this industry even as it continues to grapple with this pandemic? And a lot of people, as all our speakers have mentioned, in the food chain are extensively affected. How do we go about it? We'll be back with that and more. You're watching The Front Row. Stay with us.